Hello everyone, this is Michael, and in this video I want to talk about name change and its various aspects. So let's start with the history um, of my name changes. So at first, when I started questioning my gender a few years ago, I started feeling very uncomfortable with people calling me by my birth name. And so dis- I decided and started asking people to call me by a shortened version of my birth name, which is androgynous, and came to the realization that it made me a lot more comfortable and made dealing with people a lot more comfortable and easier for me because I was starting to get a lot of dysphoria in social situations and started avoiding being social, but when people started calling me by that name, it made things a lot easier. And it also made me realize that I can have control on that aspect of my life, and I felt like I had more power um, in changing my circumstances so that I would be more comfortable. So that was pretty powerful for me. So I went with that for a little bit, and then I started realizing that it wasn't enough, that more and more I knew that living as male was the only choice for me. So then I started thinking of what male name I wanted um, for myself. So I had a few things that were important to me that my new name would um, meet, say. So the first is that the name be easily pronounceable both in French and English. My maternal language is French, so when I speak to my family and some of my friends, it's in French. And I also want to be true to my French heritage. And I also live in an English speaking province, so I wanted a French name that was easily pronounceable in English as well. So in comes Michael, meets that criteria. I also wanted a name that was either something that had been in my family before or a derivative of the names that my parents gave me. So at first I had thought of using the male version of my birth name, which I do like. However, I recognized that it wasn't different enough from my birth name, and I felt like people wouldn't see me as male because my birth name was so similar to this new name. So I started looking for something else. So Michael is a derivative of my middle name, and when I wrote it out, with the K especially, it felt right. It felt like it suited who I am. So Mikael, or Michael, became my new chosen name. And I felt like that was a big step in my internal transition, because at this point I hadn't asked anybody else to call me Michael other than a few choice um, online friends. And that was a good way for me to try it out and see how it fit and how it felt. But really, once I started in my mind identifying as Michael, um, it became, for me, the beginning of my transition, in the sense that I started discovering who Michael was and started letting go of who my female self was. So it was a pretty huge thing for me, and it also became the way I started coming out to people. Um, Instead of saying I'm transgender, I would say um, I'm going to change my name to Michael. That was easier for me. It felt like it was more of a that was more of my reality. So Michael, it was. So when I started coming out and reintroduced myself as Michael, it felt different from what I had expected. Um, I expected it to be exciting, which it was. It was liberating in the sense that for the first time I felt like I was being true to myself and people were interacting with me in the way that felt true to who I am. It didn't feel as natural as I thought or had hoped that it would. It felt awkward sometimes, not in the way that people were saying it to me, but in the way that I felt inside when people would call me Michael. Yeah, it felt a little weird. Like a shoe that you've been really wanting for a really long time, and you put it on and you realize that it's not as comfortable as you thought it would be. It needs to be broken in. So that took a few months at least until being called Michael started feeling natural. And now it's a no brainer to me. It's who I am. It's who I've been living as the last year and a half. And yes, my old self is still a part of who I am. Um, Michael is the person that I've always wanted to be, that I've always been not it's the thing that I've always been lacking in my life, I guess. I'm really having a hard time uh, expressing that feeling, but as yeah, it's been really good to be able to redefine who I am as a person, and having a new name really makes that um, possible, I guess, in a way that's very unique. So anyway, so I've changed, like, I got a new email address, new Facebook account, um, new name tag for work and stuff like that. However, I work with an organization that requires a legal name change before all that's officially changed, and I haven't done that yet. I had a conversation with my therapist during our last session a few months ago, and she made me realize that subconsciously there's a reason why I haven't legally changed my name yet, because I'm the kind of person, when something's important to me and I need that done, I get it done. For example, my surgery or even starting hormones. When I made that decision, I started taking the steps necessary to make it happen, and it happened within a few months. So, for me to have been procrastinating in the changing of my legal name is sort of a big indicator that there's a reason why. So I've been thinking about that the last few months, and I had a little bit of a revelation a couple days ago. I called about a letter that I had received, and this organization still has my legal name. So at first I was a little nervous because I'm apprehensive about dealing with somebody in that legal capacity and them doubting who I am when I call, because I don't sound like a girl anymore. So, but as the call was happening and the gentleman was not offensive in any way, he was confused. But once I said what my name is, or legally was showing on the account, he just laughed and completed my request, and that was it. I have yet to have a negative experience outside of it being uncomfortable with dealing in an official capacity with my legal birth name. But I do feel like it reflects the fact that I identify as a trans person. So I've sort of come to a conclusion that that's the reason why I haven't changed my name yet, because it's the one thing now, other than me taking off my clothes, that identifies me as a trans person officially. And so, yeah, I feel like that's how I should be right now. I feel like that's how things should be. So, that's subject to change. If there's one thing that I've learned in the last couple years is that we change all the time, and we should be open to that. So anytime I make statements like this, it's always subject to change. But for now, me living with my legal name as my birth female name um, is okay. And yeah, if anything, it sort of opens up an avenue for people to experience interacting with the person who's transgender, and I feel like that's a good thing. I enjoy living stealth in the sense that people automatically perceive me as male, but I have no desire to be fully stealth in the sense that nobody knows that I'm trans. I like having control over who knows and who doesn't know for the purpose of safety, but at the same time, I feel like more people need more interactions with trans individuals to know that we are regular people doing regular things like calling to change my address on my account or something, mundane like that. So, yeah. Anyway, it's kind of interesting to analyze the significance of a name for a person, and being transgender puts a really unique spin on that. Anyway, as usual, I'm taking a really long time for my video. As always, if anyone has any particular questions or topics that they'd like for me to talk about, please send me a message or leave a comment, and I will do my best to fulfill that request or answer that question. And yeah, you'll keep hearing from me. I still have lots to talk about. Thanks, everyone.